Hello and welcome to today's Dab Chat. I'm Davina. I'm an Australian living in the United States for the last 3 years and someone with a long-standing interest in United States politics and fascism and how it escalates around the world when left unattended to fester. So I put up as the title O.J. Simpson and Donald Trump and the pathology of the overindulged celebrity. And I wrote that because I think those two characters are good examples of what happens when, for whatever reason, we give people a pass for being wealthy, or at least they themselves come to believe that they have a pass to do whatever they like. So we were, I hate to say privileged, but we had the unlooked for benefit of hearing Donald Trump's pathological self-talk when he bantered with a chap called Billy on an Access Hollywood bus many years ago, and said that his feelings that when you're a celebrity, they let you do it. They let you do whatever you want, grab women by their genitals. And that was his core belief, that he could do that without consequence. And after that tape became public, a lot of women who he had grabbed came forward, emboldened by the fact that Donald Trump's own admission convicted him and stood to bolster their own assertions. So before, they'd been too afraid to go up against somebody powerful and important and an overindulged celebrity, someone whose celebrity was based on the premise that they were successful in business. Now, we know more about how Donald Trump fabricates his success, or at least trades on the weaknesses of the media enough to know that he can have 6 bankruptcies and still have headlines that refer to his wealth and his success. O.J. Simpson similarly indulged as a celebrity and built up some type of belief in himself that he could do what he wanted, perhaps. And the failings of the legal system helped that happen for him, in that racist police officers and a relatively weak prosecution, I guess, resulted in a not guilty verdict for him, although he was later found civilly liable for causing the death of his ex-wife and Ron Goldman, who had been visiting her in the capacity of a friend or whatever. I don't know, nor do I care. At the moment, what I'm drawing attention to is Donald Trump and O.J. Simpson feeling that they could do whatever they wanted. And in some cases, those convictions bearing fruit, they could get away with things. They avoided criminal prosecution. I mean, they avoided criminal conviction for a while. But as with Donald Trump, O.J. Simpson was found civilly liable for ending the life of Nicole Smith, Ron Goldman and Nicole something. And Donald Trump was also found civilly liable decades after his crime of attacking a woman in a department store. E. Jean Carroll, a popular advice columnist who felt like Donald Trump was a peer, a celebrity. He was a more important, wealthy, famous celebrity than her. She went with him into a department store change room on the premise of him telling her he wanted to have her help pick a Valentine's Day gift or a gift for a girlfriend of his. And then once he had her alone in a change room, he sexually assaulted her, and a jury of Donald Trump's peers found him civilly liable for that, using the New York definition of sexual penetration as sexual abuse. And a judge who presided in that case did clarify for the media that essentially means Donald Trump was found liable for raping E. Jean Carroll, and he was asked by that jury to pay her $85 million for not only attacking her, but then defaming her character once she came public with that assertion of his actions towards her. So what's the pathology of the overindulged? The pathology of the overindulged is not something you can say is a creation of society. It's an interaction between an individual's pathological adoption of entitlement for themselves, together with the societal tendency to praise and pay attention to and elevate someone whose own narcissism and self-serving propensities can then turn extremely dark and destructive. So O.J. Simpson may have taken, it's likely he took 2 lives, and he certainly was found civilly liable for having done so. And then Donald Trump not only helped incite a murderous insurrection at the Capitol on January the 6th, 2021, but also there's evidence that he willfully neglected to take steps at a federal level in his capacity as head of the executive branch, one of the 3 branches of the United States government, but a key branch for pandemic management. And he mismanaged the COVID pandemic for what seems to have likely been a series of self-serving reasons. One, to protect a trade arrangement with China that he was hoping would distract the media from reporting on the contraction in the manufacturing sector caused by the tariff wars, the trade wars he'd instigated with China, Mexico, and Canada, amongst other places, which had caused a significant contraction in 2019, so before the effects of COVID were being documented or widely felt. And that he also self-servingly believed that if he allowed COVID to escalate, that it would predominantly affect blue states with Democratic governors, and that he could then use that as a political talking point to denigrate the performance of blue state governors in failing to protect their constituents, and that would help him politically in his goal of retaining power in the 2020 election. So I would also suggest, and my source for claiming that about Trump is a Vanity Fair story called How the Testing Plan Went Poof, which was a reporter who spoke to various members of Jared Kushner's national strategy team, a team that was formed to devise a strategy for how to go about rolling out testing at a national level to identify and contain COVID cases and prevent its spread across the United States. And there were whistleblowers within that team that discussed with the Vanity Fair journalist how the national testing strategy was cancelled, was abandoned because of Jared Kushner's beliefs that it would serve Donald Trump better at a political level to let the pandemic flourish, because it was affecting blue states more at that point. I mean, blue states being coastal states that had more international traffic and thus had greater initial exposure to COVID, a disease that was being spread via international travel from its country of origin, which, as we know now, was China. So let's have a look at some polls. I've got a little bit of polls up on the screen that says President Biden is leading former President Trump in the general election, 41 to 37% in new Ipsos Reuters polling. So that's an improvement for Joe Biden of 3% and a fall of 5% for Donald Trump. And it's probably adding weight and robustness to a conclusion that some analysts were drawing earlier that said, look, maybe people are more likely to give flippant answers to pollsters the further away we are from the election. And my theory to add to that was that, yes, people tell pollsters things to help put pressure on a political party. So people who wanted the Biden administration to do more, who felt underserved by the federal government, would say that they weren't voting for Joe Biden in an effort to motivate the Biden administration to jump through more hoops, perhaps to cancel more student debt or to return the child tax credit. Who knows what was motivating people, but certainly as we get closer to the election, this trend of more people telling pollsters, yeah, actually they won't be voting for Donald Trump, they'll be voting for Joe Biden. That shift towards Biden and away from Trump perhaps shows people taking it more seriously. And certainly there've been some additional developments over the last few days that would motivate people to take a Trump second candidacy seriously, the Arizona Supreme Court reinstated a law from 1864 making abortion illegal in all cases without exceptions for rape and incest, and the one exception allowable being to preserve the life of the mother. And of course, once you make it a contentious legal gray area of should a woman receive medical treatment for a reproductive complication, would she just prefer to have medical treatment, or does she really need the medical treatment to save her life? Once you put that in black and white legislation at a state level, that it has to be to save her life. It couldn't just be that maybe her uterus is threatened, maybe her heart rate's increased, it looks like she's got sepsis, but is her life in danger? I mean, she's had a cancer diagnosis, she wants an abortion so she can proceed with chemotherapy, but maybe she'll survive anyway. We can't definitively say that her life is at risk, so we can't legally provide her with an abortion. A doctor at a hospital and anybody who assisted would be risking a 2 to 5 year prison term, according to this reinstated 1864 law. So this is why all abortion should be legal, because nobody's potentially medically necessary treatment should become a matter for debate. Do you really need it, or do you just think you need it? It shouldn't be the case that women are sent to bleed in car parks because their lives are not sufficiently in danger. It shouldn't be the case that a rape victim has to prove that she was able to obtain a conviction for her attacker and prove rape to be able to end a pregnancy. Pregnancies should be able to happen earlier on without having to jump through legalistic hoops. A massive cells in a petri dish is the level of fetal development that you should be able to tell is the case for 96% of abortions that occur within the first trimester when a unborn child is not identifiably a baby and they haven't yet drawn breath, which is the typical legal standard for awarding personhood to a human being. You've emerged from a mother, from a parent, you now have legal status, and somebody who goes out of their way to kill you is guilty of murder. Donald Trump, as many fascist wannabe authoritarians do, often tries to demonize Democrats and other people by saying they want to kill babies, make abortion legal up to 9 months and even after. And he distorts the fact that palliative care is offered to parents offered to the babies who are born with a terminal illness, who are in the throes of dying and a painful death, and they are sometimes given palliative measures to help a dying baby not suffer too much pain. So Trump twists that fact that palliative care is offered to babies to say that's Democrats making legal aborting babies after they're born and calling that abortion. Nope, that doesn't happen. It's a fascistic lie designed to emotionally manipulate people into supporting him and to demonizing their opponents, and to find unity and purpose in having an intense hatred, an intense and fabricated rationale hatred for another group of people. And in the same way, people who are extremely racist can hate white people and want to call them N-word lovers. Have you seen that level of irrational, gleeful hate before? That kind of unwarranted contempt and disdain. It can be really energizing for some people, and it can be contagious. And certainly within family structures and communities, that kind of irrational hate is not only energizing, but ultimately is very destructive, not only to people they victimize, but to the communities themselves. And I would suggest that's why a lot of the communities that voted for Donald Trump in a majority sense are often communities that are beset by higher levels of heart disease and drug addiction, and what sociologists sometimes clump together as deaths of despair. Because people who direct their energies into unwarranted hate and contempt for other stigmatized demographic groups, those people avoid investing energy into their own lives, or furthering themselves or their businesses or their education or their careers. They choose to burnish their ego by feeling contempt for others, That's how they feel good about themselves. They make a differential diagnosis. I am good because you are bad. Now, we should all be able to relate to that human tendency. That's why we watch crime dramas, to go, oh, we're glad we're not them. We're glad we're not the terrible people who committed crimes, and we'll go and hug our family tighter, remembering to be grateful that we haven't been victims of crime ourselves. So that urge to put distance in and to categorize ourselves as safe and worthy and okay, that's a very human impulse. But people who've succumbed to dysfunctional levels of racism, intergenerational contempt, saying young people don't like them, they've got it too good today, they're soft. People whose personalities get eaten up by that kind of emotional indulgence, it tends to have a destructive effect on their lives. And that's visible at a community level. If you look at rates of deaths of despair, suicide, obesity, drug addiction, those rates are higher in communities that voted for Trump. You choose a white savior who helps reinstate white supremacy as a valid life view, as a valid way to frame the world, if you're dysfunctional in your ability to pursue your dreams and advance yourself and your family and your community through your own efforts. So that's all for me for today. Thank you so much for listening. I'll probably try and tune in at the same time tomorrow. Until then, take care of each other, stay functional, lift yourself up through loving louder and harder than people who try and foment irrational hatred and fear of each other. Fight fascism, basically. And I'm not Antifa, I'm pro-democracy, and sometimes you have to focus on what you are pro, whilst also highlighting the dangers of authoritarian people who are intoxicated by group hate and feel empowered and feel group potency by their leader violating societal norms and even by violating laws, such as you can see with Donald Trump, who retained a lot of his supporters even after being credibly charged with 88 different felony charges. Thanks. Bye.